Ring, ring, ring. Hello, simps and also virgins. And
Be
welcome
respectful,
back
please.
to Krown's magical crypto cave.
Yes, sir, baby. We are back. We're in a different location right now, actually. So we are on the road. Internet connectivity leaves a little bit to be desired right now. But I would like to take a second to wish you the best on this nice Monday. We have a new week. A lot of opportunities very likely arising this week as we have a lot of catalysts, actually. There is U.S. midterms. There is CPI prints coming out. And then the old FTX SAM FUD is going on right now, too. So who the hell knows what happens with that? What I do know, however, is that volatility is very likely expected as we are looking at weekly lows here on volatility indicators. Anyways, as far as today's analysis, I wanted to start off first with the short-term time frame analysis that we were looking at on Saturday with a short-term pullback. I believe we're getting that right now. There was 6-hour regular bearish divergence on all exchanges. I'm on CME right here, and we're getting that pullback kind of born upon that as of right now. But the question is, when does a pullback turn into reversal? When is it time to be fearful, I suppose? So I wanted to go through first some hopium and then the reversal conditions and then what to expect next, essentially. So with that in mind, let's go over here to the good old hopium chart. That's going to be mostly based off of Dixie. So again, last week, the week prior, and the week prior than that, we saw a rejection on Dixie. It does still look like Dixie is putting in a nice weekly top here, but being that it is a weekly time frame, it is expected to take quite some time. We continue to see that volatility is contracting on the weekly time frame after two extremes relatively close in a row. So whenever I see something like that, I'm looking for a counter trend move. In this case, that would be to the downside. On top of that, 1, 2, 3, 4 drives of bearish divergence on a weekly RSI, and the weekly Joule continues with its downside momentum as well, which started in early to mid-October. So I'm still looking at this as a likely top until proven otherwise. What would prove it otherwise? Back above 114, bullish as fuck, and kiss all these charts goodbye if that were to happen. But until then, might have short-term bounces here, and in fact, probably might try for it. I don't really have strong opinions on that, but ultimately looking in November for it to come down somewhere around about $1.08.5 to $1.09, try for another bounce there, and then very likely continue lower into perhaps the end of the year, which probably does benefit risk-on assets. The relationship isn't one-to-one, obviously, but when we're looking at higher-term time frame trends, it has been a pretty damn good inverse relationship to risk-on assets, Bitcoin and crypto included. Anyways, now that we've gotten through that, the hopium, let's say, which has kind of been driving this analysis for the past 4 weeks now, I do want to get into, let's just go back to Bitcoin. How about that? All right, so starting off here with the daily, a few things of interest. So as volatility once again contracts on this potential, on this pullback, I would be looking at the same area as before, 20,500 as a big pivot on a daily closing basis. Why is that? Because if Bitcoin starts to close below 20,500 on a daily closing basis, that is at the point when this is going to start to look a lot more like a local high in a series of lower highs, and the daily RSI is already making significantly higher highs right here compared to the last 3 major highs on the daily, which goes all the way back to these highs here, the summer highs at 25, and then again at about 23,000 or so. So that would be kind of what's at stake for right now. That is to say that I will essentially get higher term time frame bearish on this asset if you do see Bitcoin close below those pivots. Be looking for general moves to the downside throughout November. But with that in mind, there also should be a few other things to be aware of here. Going back to the daily momentum, we can see that daily momentum will remain to the downside on CME as long as closures are below 20,900. So obviously if Bitcoin closed below there today and closed below 20,500, that would be a damn good indication Bitcoin's going to come back down, clean out 20,000 bucks and probably head lower as well. And of course, until that happens though, I still favor the current trend, I suppose, even though it looks a little bit ugly right now. But going down to the hourly time frame, where is the pivot as of right now? It's kind of the same area actually on an hourly closure. Closure below about 20,500, same sort of thing. Probably bleeds into the daily at that point. Be getting continuation back down to the low $20,000 territory. Referencing lower term time frame stochastic momentum on CME, we do see that the 12-hour is going to be postured with downside momentum as long as Bitcoin's below 20,800. not super far away from current price action, but something to be aware of. 6-hour time frame is going to be actually up above 20,500, so we see that pivot coming in there. 4-hour time frame is also going to be up. Well, no, it's actually turning down right now with as long as Bitcoin's below 21,100, and the hourly is going to be nosediving below 21,000 bucks. So it is pressure onto the downside right now, but I really wouldn't be looking at too much of this as relevant until U.S. markets open up a little bit later today. That's when the real game starts, I suspect. Until then, I do still look at this as a as a short-term time frame pullback, the same one that we were looking at over the weekend and at the end of last week. But the question is, does Bitcoin hold 20,500 or not? If it doesn't, then that's at the point where I say, it might be time to run away from this asset for a little bit. But until then, all good, I suppose. Now, I wanted to also get into another higher term time frame signal here, or a potential signal building up, which is the 2-day time frame volatility versus stochastic momentum signature. Volatility represented by this indicator that my cursor is currently on right now is at extreme lows, and actually starting to expand from extreme lows here too. And that, coupled with the direction of the stochastic oscillator, has gotten the correct direction on some pretty big moves 8 out of the last 10 times, which are the only 10 times actually in CME's history right here, as you can see. If we were to actually do the full stat analysis on it, the average move from these extreme lows has led to about 39.5% move done over the course of the next 3.5 weeks. So we're talking about, upon confirmation, moves that are likely going to last into the end of November and probably even bleed into the 5-day time frame signal, which I won't go over today, which is going to lead us into probably the end of the year. So these are, pretty important pivots right now, especially with weekly weekly volatility at extreme lows. We're looking at a macro move coming from this base, and I suspect that if Bitcoin does start to confirm local highs here, even on a daily, that's going to be another damn good indication that next moves to the downside. Until Bitcoin's starting to close daily deltas below 20,500. Actually, I look at this as the same pullback and likely to try again to the upside. Is there anything to be aware of on short-term timeframes here? I mean, not necessarily. Not super interested in short-term timeframes as of the current moment. I wouldn't necessarily be looking for continuation until we get 4-hour closures above 21,250 or so. If that happens, probably looking somewhere close to, or somewhere likely above 22 in this case. But for right now, the question is, what does Bitcoin do around that $20,500 pivot? Any sort of a daily closure below there? That's at the point where I start to look at this as your next lower high in a series of lower highs. So I suspect we'll be waiting around until the U.S. market open a little bit later today. And then, of course, the big event is tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, tomorrow's the 8th, so that's U.S. midterms. That's probably when Bitcoin actually picks its direction. And then CPI coming out, I think on Thursday, is going to be the next sort of, big catalyst on top of that. So that's all that I got for today. Nice and short and sweet. Enjoying some tropical storm here in an unknown location of an island in the middle of the fucking ocean. and we'll be back tomorrow once we actually have something new to be looking at, once we have something tangible that can really drive the next sort of sets of interesting targets. Anyways, that's it. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.